So I'm out here in the warehouse because what I'm going to do is a epoxy sandbed. It's an interesting concept. I had an idea for it, looked online, saw that people have done it before, and what you're doing here is you're basically making a mold, which is what I've created here, which is basically this is the same size as my tank, and my idea is to mix epoxy and then sand and then create a fake sand bed, which has the advantage of looking nice like a sand bed, but won't trap detritus like real sand would. So I've never done this before. I'm kind of excited to see how it's going to come out. It may be a total failure, but what I've got here is this mold which I've created before. I've got Carib Sea aragonite sand, which is what I'm going to use. It's a nice coarse grained sand. And then 5-minute epoxy, which was the only epoxy I could find at Lowe's. I'm not sure if this is the best stuff or not, but we're gonna give it a shot and see how it comes out. Hopefully I have enough of it. I have a mixing container with a trusty mixing knife, and then gloves, obviously, to protect my hands. So full instructions for this are online. We'll put the link in for Reef to Reef, the thread where they talk about it, but I'm gonna go ahead and give it my best shot and see what happens here. And that's it, we're all done. We'll give it the weekend to cure and see how we're looking on Monday. So here I am back with my epoxy sandbed. Full disclosure is it's been a couple of days and I actually didn't have enough epoxy with those 2 packs of quart size, so I had to go up and actually order some more to put down a second layer. What we have here now is a sand sandwich where there's a layer of epoxy, sand, and then another layer of epoxy on top. So even though this looks like it is got some 3D texture, in reality it's flat. And I'm really curious to see what it's going to look like in the tank. So let's see if we can separate the plastic here. I didn't know whether I'm going to be able to do that or not, or whether I'd basically be tied, but it looks like the plastic actually peels right off the epoxy. Wow, that comes off really nice. So there it is. There's my epoxy sandbed. Obviously I've got some bits here which I'm gonna have to break off, maybe shape it a little bit to fit it into the aquarium. But for the most part it looks pretty good, and I'm excited to see if it fits and see how well it works. So I got my epoxy sandbed. As you can see, I made it slightly larger than the base of the aquarium, so I'm gonna have to very carefully shave this off. But I'm gonna figure out how to cut it. I'm guessing very carefully, probably scoring it on the underside with a razor blade and then very carefully breaking it off. But yeah, I mean, basically I need to trim these edges so that it'll fit nice and flush in the aquarium. Now I've actually got to cut this, and cutting epoxy, which is inherently brittle, is going to be an interesting experience. So I'm going to try a couple different things. I have a rotary Dremel here. Might give that a try. First I'm going to just try scoring it and then seeing if I can just separate it. So I have a straight edge and a razor blade. We'll see how that goes first. All right, that was fun. So the experience there was a couple lessons. First off is, if you can, do what they show you to do on Reef to Reef in the forum, which is make the mold exactly to your aquarium size. Failing that, if you do what I did, which is make it and then have to cut it, actually the Dremel worked really well in terms of cutting through it, but a quick trip to the internet reveals that epoxy dust can be fairly toxic. So, you know, if you do that, make sure you do it wearing a respirator or whatever else, which is what I did, and you're still gonna get covered with epoxy dust. And I cut it to size, and it looks like it fits pretty good. So, you know, we put that in, and lo and behold, there you have it, an epoxy sandbed. What I may do here is you can fill in the gaps with sand so that you don't have any gaps. I may actually do that and do it with silicone so that this fits exactly, and also then it'll be a nice flush finish all the way to the end. But once there's water in there, it should look pretty good, and you can always sprinkle some extra sand on the top. So my first attempt at epoxy sand bed, learned a few things, would do it a little differently next time, but you know, first time for everything.